Digital marketing is woven into our everyday routines. Most of the time, we don't even notice it. And that's precisely the point. The most effective digital marketing blends into the background. It feels like part of the experience rather than an interruption. In this chapter, we're going to pause and look beneath the surface. We'll explore how digital touchpoints shape decisions and how marketers design the experiences we move through without thinking. This is the foundation for the rest of the course, learning to see the invisible architecture behind what feels ordinary. Imagine Jordan starting their day. They wake up, reach for their phone, and before they've even gotten out of bed, they've already moved through a series of digital touch points. A notification from a group chat pulls them in. A quick scroll through Instagram shows a mix of friends, creators, and ads that don't feel like ads at all. They open Spotify, and the playlist waiting for them has been shaped by weeks of listening behavior. None of this feels unusual. It feels like a typical morning. On the way to class, Jordan checks Google Maps for traffic, glances at a Starbucks reward offer, and taps through a few TikToks while waiting for the light to change. Each of these moments is tiny, almost invisible, but together they form a pattern, a rhythm of digital interactions that quietly guides choices, preferences, and expectations. What's striking is that Jordan isn't thinking about any of this. They're not analyzing which touch points are organic and which are designed. They're simply moving through their day, unaware of how many decisions are being shaped long before they consciously make them. This is the world we're studying in this course. A world where digital marketing doesn't always announce itself. A world where the most influential interactions are often the ones we barely notice. And once you learn to see these moments, once you start recognizing the architecture behind them, the digital landscape looks very different. Now let's flip perspectives for a moment. From a marketer's point of view, your day isn't random at all. It's a series of little openings, moments where the right message might actually land. Think about those touch points you saw in Jordan's morning. A notification doesn't pop up by accident. Automation tools schedule it because people like you tend to check their phones around that time. The email you get isn't just sent to everyone. Targeting tools decide which version you see based on what you've clicked before. Even the search results you get are shaped by what marketers think will be most helpful or interesting for someone with your pattern of behavior. Behind the scenes, measurement tools are watching what works. Not in a creepy way. More like, did this help? Did this make sense? Did this completely miss the mark? They track what you click, how long you stay, and where you drift away. Also, the next interaction feels a little smoother. So, while you might experience all of this as noise, marketers see it as a kind of journey. They're not trying to overwhelm you. They're trying to show up at the moment when you're most open to hearing from them, and to do it in a way that feels natural, not pushy. Once you start seeing it from this angle, digital marketing stops looking like a random stream of messages and starts looking like a system. A system designed to meet people where they already are, in the flow of their everyday lives. Marketing's goals haven't really changed. At the end of the day, we're still trying to understand customers, create value, and build relationships that last. What has changed is the environment we're working in, and that shift affects everything else. In traditional marketing, feedback moved slowly. You'd launch a campaign, cross your fingers, and wait. Maybe weeks, maybe months. You could get a sense of whether something worked, but the visibility was limited. You didn't always know who saw your message, how they reacted, or where their attention drifted. Digital marketing flips that dynamic. Feedback is immediate. You can see what people click, what they ignore, and how they move from one touch point to the next. Algorithms shape what people notice, often in ways they don't consciously realize. And because everyone is competing for the same sliver of attention, visibility becomes dynamic, constantly shifting, constantly recalibrating. So the goals are the same, but the pace and the tools are dramatically different. Marketers today operate in an environment where decisions happen quickly, data updates constantly, and the customer journey is always in motion. Understanding that shift is key to understanding everything else we'll cover in this course. The 4Ps still guide marketing decisions, but in a connected world, each one stretches far beyond its traditional boundaries. The core ideas haven't changed. Product, price, place, and promotion still shape how value is created and delivered, but the way marketers work with them looks very different today. Take product. It's no longer just a physical item or a service. It might include an app, a stream of updates, or a digital experience that evolves over time. Even something as simple as a coffee order can come with a rewards program, mobile ordering, and personalized suggestions. Price has become more fluid. Comparison is effortless, and customers can see alternatives instantly. Dynamic pricing, subscription models, and limited time offers all play a bigger role because the digital environment makes them easy to test and adjust. Place used to mean shelves, stores, and distribution channels. Now it's wherever the customer happens to be, on a phone, a laptop, a tablet, or even a smart speaker. Access matters just as much as location. And promotion has shifted from one-way messaging to something more interactive. People don't just receive messages, they respond, comment, share, and shape what happens next. Personalization is the norm, not the exception. So the 4Ps haven't disappeared, they've evolved. And understanding that evolution is essential for understanding how digital marketing actually works. Segmentation, targeting, and positioning are still at the heart of marketing strategy. That hasn't changed. What has changed is how precisely we can apply them in a digital environment. Segmentation used to rely on broad categories, age groups, income brackets, maybe a few lifestyle indicators, useful but limited. Today, segmentation includes behavioral signals, what people search for, what they browse, how often they return, and even the patterns in how they move from one page to another. These signals don't replace traditional segments, but they add layers of nuance that marketers simply didn't have before. Targeting becomes sharper because digital tools can pick up on intent. If someone is comparing products, reading reviews, or searching for solutions, that behavior tells you something about where they are in their decision process. But even with all this data, judgment still matters. Data can show you what people do, but it can't always explain why they do it. That interpretation still requires human insight. Positioning becomes more visible because it shows up everywhere, on websites, in search results, in reviews, in social content, and even in the way algorithms surface or suppress certain messages. Your positioning isn't just what you say, it's what the digital environment reflects back to your audience. So STP is still the backbone of strategy. Digital tools don't replace it. They sharpen it, making each step more informed, more responsive, and more connected to real behavior. Customers don't think in terms of channels. They don't wake up and say, today I'll use social media, then I'll switch to mobile, then I'll go into a store. They just move through their day, and the boundaries between digital and physical spaces blur without them even noticing. Someone might see a product on social media, look it up on a website, check reviews on their phone while standing in line, and then buy it in a store on the way home. To them, that's one continuous experience, not four separate channels. For marketers, this creates a very real challenge. The experience has to feel consistent, no matter where someone shows up. A message on a website should match what a customer hears in a store. A mobile app should reflect real-time inventory, not yesterday's data. If someone starts a return online, the in-store associate should be able to pick up the thread without confusion. Omnichannel marketing isn't about being everywhere or flooding every platform. It's about creating a coherent experience across the places where customers already are. When the pieces line up, the messaging, the design, the information, the tone, the customer feels like the brand gets them. When they don't, the experience feels disjointed and trust erodes quickly. Understanding this omni-channel reality is essential because it's the environment your customers already live in and the environment your marketing strategy has to meet. The customer journey is one of the most valuable tools we have for making sense of all these interactions. It gives us a way to organize what can otherwise feel like a chaotic mix of touch points. Most models break the journey into stages: awareness, consideration, purchase, post-purchase, and advocacy. Not because people move through them neatly, but because the stages help us understand what customers need at different moments. But it's important to remember that the journey isn't linear. People skip steps. They loop back. They start in the middle. Someone might hear about a brand months before they ever look it up, or they might jump straight from awareness to purchase because a friend recommended it. Real behavior is messy, and that's precisely why the journey map is so valuable. The real power of journey mapping is that it helps marketers see how different touch points fit together. It highlights where customers get stuck, where they need reassurance, and where the experience can be smoother or more helpful. It also shows where the brand is strong and where it's unintentionally creating friction. So the customer journey isn't a rigid path. It's a way of organizing complexity, a tool that helps marketers understand how people actually move, think, and decide in a connected world. Awareness begins the moment someone first encounters an option. It might be a video that catches a person's eye, a post shared by a friend, a search result that appears at the right moment, or even a casual recommendation in a group chat. At this stage, people aren't evaluating anything yet. They're simply noticing that a possibility exists. Consideration starts when they begin comparing alternatives. This is when they look at reviews, browse websites, watch demos, or ask friends for opinions. They're gathering information, weighing pros and cons, and trying to understand which option fits their needs. It's a curious, exploratory stage, not a commitment, but a genuine interest. Most marketing efforts take place in these early stages because this is where brands can shape the conversation. If you show up early, you can influence what criteria people use to evaluate options. You can highlight what matters, clarify misconceptions, and position your offering in a way that feels relevant and helpful. Understanding these stages helps marketers design content that supports customers as they explore and compare. It's not about pushing for a purchase. It's about being useful at the moment when someone is forming their first impressions and starting to make sense of their choices. A purchase isn't the end of the journey. In many ways, it's the beginning of a new phase, one that often matters more than the moment of transaction itself. Post-purchase experiences shape how people feel about the decision they just made. Onboarding, support, updates, and even small moments of reassurance all play a role. If everything feels smooth and intuitive, customers feel confident. They think, yes, this was the right choice. But if the experience is confusing or frustrating, regret can set in quickly, sometimes within minutes of the purchase. And then there's advocacy, the stage where customers feel so satisfied that they talk about their experience with others. In digital environments, this carries enormous weight. Reviews, ratings, unboxing videos, social posts, and casual recommendations all influence the awareness and consideration stages for new customers. One person's positive experience can ripple outward and shape the decisions of hundreds or thousands of others. So the journey isn't a straight line that ends at the cash register. It's a loop. Every post-purchase moment feeds back into the system, influencing what future customers notice, compare, and ultimately choose. Understanding this loop helps marketers design experiences that don't just lead to a purchase, but also build confidence, satisfaction, and long-term loyalty. One of the most powerful aspects of digital marketing is the ability to learn continuously. Every click, every view, every tiny action creates data. And while any single action might not mean much on its own, the patterns that emerge over time can be incredibly revealing. Marketers can see where people engage, where they hesitate, and where they drop off. They can test small changes, a clearer headline, a shorter form, a different image, a more visible button, and watch in real time how those adjustments affect behavior. Sometimes a tiny tweak produces a surprisingly meaningful improvement. Over time, testing becomes a habit. Learning becomes ongoing. Instead of launching a campaign and hoping for the best, marketers can refine and adjust as they go. The work becomes less about guessing and more about observing, experimenting, and iterating. But even with all this data, judgment still matters. Data can tell you what people do, but it can't always explain why they do it. The best marketers combine data with insight, creativity, and empathy. They use data to understand behavior, not to dictate it. They look for patterns, but they also listen for meaning. In a connected world, data isn't just a measurement tool. It's part of a feedback loop that helps marketers learn, adapt, and create experiences that feel more relevant and more human. Digital marketing matters because it's where decisions actually happen. Screens are the first place people turn when they need information, want to compare options, or are simply trying to make life a little easier. Whether someone is choosing a restaurant, researching a product, or planning a trip, digital touchpoints shape what they notice and how they decide. For marketers, this creates an enormous opportunity. Messages can be tailored to be more relevant, more timely, and more helpful. Even small organizations, a local bakery, a startup, a student-run nonprofit, can reach audiences that would have been impossible to access a decade ago. The playing field isn't perfectly level, but it's far more open than it used to be. Understanding digital marketing is no longer optional. It's a fundamental skill for anyone working in business, communication, strategy, or entrepreneurship. It helps you understand how organizations reach people, how decisions are influenced, and how value is communicated in a connected world. This chapter gives you the foundation you'll build on throughout the course. Everything that comes next, channels, analytics, content, strategy, rests on these core ideas about how people move, choose, and interact in digital environments. Think back to Jordan for a moment. Scrolling during a break, tapping on a recommendation, comparing options almost without thinking. Nothing about that moment felt like marketing. It felt like an ordinary part of an ordinary day. But that's exactly the point. Digital marketing isn't something you encounter only when you choose to study it. It's the environment you already move through. Every notification, every search result, every suggestion that appears at just the right time is part of a design system shaping what people notice, consider, and eventually choose. The 4 Ps give you the language to describe what's happening. The customer journey gives you a map to understand how people move from one moment to the next, and data provides the feedback that explains why certain experiences feel smooth while others feel confusing or frustrating. Once you start paying attention, the patterns become clearer. You begin to see what Jordan was experiencing and what you experience every day with a different level of awareness. You start to recognize the choices behind the choices, the structure behind the flow of information. This course is designed to help you make sense of that world. It will give you the tools to read the signals, understand the logic, and make thoughtful decisions, not just as a consumer, but as someone who may one day design these experiences for others. You're already living inside marketing. Now you get to understand it and use that understanding with intention.